Floodwaters are still rising in Mozambique in the wake of Cyclone Idai.
It's being described as the worst humanitarian crisis in Mozambique's history. Heavy flooding and prolonged bouts of rain are compounding the destruction wreaked by Cyclone Idai last week.
Others are making it out from the flood zone to the beaches at Beira, itself 90% damaged, with no electricity and limited supplies of safe water. Outside the city, frankly, who knows what's going on?
On March 15th, Cyclone Idai made landfall in Mozambique near Beira. It was the most damaging storm in the history of the Southwest Indian Ocean Basin, and it killed 1,300 people. On March 28th, I got on a plane to Beira and joined a medical team as a photographer. After a good night's sleep, we headed out the next morning to set up a clinic. The strength and the power of the storm was evident everywhere. Every single building had sustained damage, and most roofs were either damaged or torn off. Scores and scores of trees had been pushed over by the force of the wind, and although flooding had subsided in Beira, it was clear to what level the water rose. There were tent cities everywhere set up by the government and by charities, and it was in one of these that we pulled in and set up clinic. The team set up clinic and immediately started helping people. My job was to document everything as a photographer. People were traumatized, desperate and hungry. And cholera had already started rearing its ugly head. A lot of the local water sources in Beira had been contaminated in some way, and this was contributing to the spread of cholera and other diseases. Charities had already started providing food at these tent cities, but when we were there, it was evident that it wasn't enough. The odd politician also made their appearance to promise help to the people. After a hard day's work, we headed back to where we were camping out, and although we were happy that we helped people, we knew that the need was great and there was a lot more help needed. On day 2, the team was split up in 2 groups. Most of the people stayed at the tent city to provide medical care there, while the rest of us went on a recon mission in search of more remote areas where people still needed help. We found this one village that was almost completely destroyed, and although we found 2 people there, everyone else had left for Beira in search of help. While we were out looking for people to help, we got a call from the World Health Organization that wanted to send us to a more remote area. We went to Beira's airport to meet this guy from the World Health Organization, and what we encountered was like a scene from a movie. One side of the airport was converted into this makeshift operations center, and literally every single charity in the world was there. It was a hive of activity of just people running around talking on satellite phones and talking on 2-way radios. The one door was actually open, and you could see choppers coming into land and taking off, big massive airplanes coming into land to bring supplies from the rest of the world. Everyone was talking and communicating to someone, and they were all there for one thing: to help the people of Mozambique. Eventually we met up with this guy and we got our orders to go to this more remote area called Dombe. The next morning, half of the team set off for Dombe. The rest of them stayed behind to man the already established clinic. It was 5 to 7 hours drive, and the more we traveled inland, it was just clear how powerful the storm was. Even this far inland on higher ground, it was still flooded. Roads were washed away, bridges were washed away, and it was becoming evident how much these people had to endure. We eventually ended up on this guy's farm. And from this farm, him and his friends were running a tight operation to feed and supply crops and water to 9,000 people stuck on the other side of the river. Because of the floodwaters, boulders and rocks had been moved on the riverbed in such a way that they could not safely navigate across the river with the boat. The only option that was left was helicopters. In the days following Cyclone Idai, when everything was still underwater, these guys were saving people from trees and buildings with their boats. And now that the water had subsided, they had gone and knocked on the door of the UN, got choppers and organized food, seeds, supplies and water just through a WhatsApp group. We quickly set up our tents and started helping wherever we could. We provided some medical help to people on this side of the river, but we also started helping fixing boats and carrying stuff. At the end of the day, when everything was starting to calm down, I headed back to where we were camping out, and I walked past a bunch of planks. That's what I thought it was. What I thought was just a bunch of planks lying underneath the tree was actually makeshift headstones that they were using to mark the bodies that they had found and had to rebury. It was a powerful visual for me, just the reality of what was going on around us. And although these amazing people had been helping a lot of people, there were just some that did not make it. I met the South African-Canadian guy working for the Red Cross, and his only job was to find the bodies of the dead and rebury them. After my conversation with him, it really hit home what had happened here. Going to bed that night, I struggled to fall asleep, just knowing the loss that people had endured and the amount of help people still needed just across the river. The next 2 days we were riding choppers, trying to help people on the other side of the river with their medical needs. We were thankful for the valuable helicopter time that we were given to be able to get to the other side of the river, always marveling at how much this farmer and his friends had accomplished. Our effort was but a little drop in the bucket of what really needed to be done. I think the most difficult for me was seeing the babies and the children that needed help, because I couldn't stop thinking about my boy back home. I think this is the moment where I struggled to keep in the tears. The chopper was taking off, and we had helped only but a few people for an hour. And although there were easily 100 people that had come from all the villages to be helped, we probably only helped about 20 people. But our helicopter time was up and we had to go. Another team would come and replace us in the next 2 to 3 days, but I couldn't help thinking the suffering that delay might cause. I have to console myself with the fact that even if we helped one, but sometimes that rationalization just feels so shallow.